Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. And as predicted a week ago, the announcement of a ceasefire in the Middle East, albeit short-lived, has brought a degree of positive sentiment this week in several key indicators. The ANZ Roy Morgan Consumer Confidence increased 2.2 points to 64.5, a second straight weekly increase. But still the fourth lowest reading for consumer confidence since the series began more than 50 years ago. Interestingly, for the first time since the war in the Middle East, the consumer confidence among women at 65.2 is higher than men on 63.8. In further good news, ANZ Roy Morgan inflation expectations dropped for a second straight week, down 0.5% to 6.7%. This means Australians expect annual inflation of 6.7% in each of the next 2 years. That's the lowest reading on this indicator for a month, but still way above anyone's comfort zone. There was a slight recovery for Roy Morgan government confidence, with 26%, up 3% of electors believing the country's going in the right direction. But the majority, 60.5%, say the country is going in the wrong direction still. Overall, the Roy Morgan government confidence rating was up 4.5 points to just 65.5, still nearly 35 points below the neutral level of 100. Now to the Roy Morgan poll, which shows ALP primary support at 30%, down 0.5%, One Nation up 3% to 24.5% at the expense of the LNP coalition on 22.5%, down 1.5%, made up of the Liberals, who were down 0.5 to 19.5%, and Nationals down 1% to 3%. The Greens were up 0.5% to 12.5%, and Independents and other parties were down 1.5% to 10.5%. Now, the federal two-party preferred result is still ALP 56, ahead of the coalition on 44%, based on how electors said they would vote. That's unchanged on a week ago. So if a federal election were held now, the ALP would be returned to government with a large majority, according to interviewing conducted by Roy Morgan from April 6 to 12, 2026, with a representative Australia-wide cross-section of 1,512 electors. Analysis of voting trends by gender shows a stark difference between the two genders, with the ALP leading strongly amongst women on a two-party preferred basis. ALP 61%, that's up 3.5 points, compared to LNP on 39%, down 3.5 points. This two-party preferred movement among women is driven by the changing primary votes and preference flows, with primary support for the ALP actually unchanged at 32.5%, but support for the Greens up 1.5% to 16.5%, the LNP coalition down 3.5% to 21.5%, and support for One Nation up 2.5% to 19%. However, amongst men, there's been a quite different result this week. On a two-party preferred basis, both sides are level, 50-50. ALP is down 4 percentage points to 50%, compared to the LNP that's up 4 percentage points to 50%. Among men, primary support for the ALP is down 1% to 28%, while support for One Nation has increased 2.5% to 29.5%. And now, the most popular party on primary vote. Support for the LNP coalition is up 0.5% to 23%, while support for other parties and independents is down 2% to 10.5%. Now to the Roy Morgan measures of employment and unemployment. So the war in Iran and consequent rises in petrol prices is already having an impact on people looking for work and people looking for more work. Real unemployment, the Roy Morgan measure of unemployment, was essentially unchanged, down 0.1% to 10.5%. An estimated 1.69 million Australians were unemployed and looking for work. That's down 28,000 on a month ago. And it's not due to more jobs being created, but because people stopped looking. Overall, employment fell 50,000 to under 14.5 million. Part-time jobs went down 120,000, full-time jobs went up 70,000. The Australian workforce contracted to 16,185,000, down 78,000. Underemployment, the number of people wanting to work more hours, was down significantly by 205,000 to an estimated 1.69 million. This meant workforce underutilisation dropped 1.3% to 20.9%, an estimated 3.38 million people. However, the March estimates continue a long run of high figures, with over 3 million Australians now underutilised for a 16th straight month, stretching back to late 2024. Now, these numbers are important as the country tries to make the right economic and fiscal decisions to prevent rampant inflation or a recession in a complex global environment. The inflation shock from the Middle East conflict is yet to fully impact the Australian economy, as we saw in 2022 after Russia's invasion of the Ukraine in the month of February, the same month the latest conflict began. That conflict led to inflation increasing rapidly throughout the rest of the year, before peaking in December 2022 at 8.4%. As well as high inflation, we also saw 13 increases to interest rates in 2022 and 2023 to contain inflation, and there's a risk of a similar response this year. These factors mean the federal budget, due to be delivered in about a month, must be careful to support the economy without increasing spending and stoking further inflation. There must be targeted measures to increase productivity in the economy that encourage businesses to invest and support growth. And looking forward to next week, I'll be back to bring you the latest data for consumer confidence, inflation expectations, and the latest voting intention. Thanks for listening. See you next week.